All right. All right. Looks like we're live. Okay. Here we go. So hello. Welcome to 3 Ingredients for Unlocking Your Potential. I'm William Roy. So this video is going to be, it's our first live one, my first live video. It's also going to be a bit of a long one, probably a full hour, may go over an hour. There's a lot of content on here, and I'll try to keep it as short as I can, but let's go right into it. What I wanted to do today is kind of talk about the search for meaning. All of us are meaning-making creatures, and that's a psychological fact. It's well established in the psychological literature. So the search for meaning is really familiar to all of us. But when we're in situations like in an organization, we're in a job, and turnover in the organization is high, for example, meaningful work is difficult to find. It's elusive. Even if you like what you're doing, the fact that there's so much turnover, so much negative change in an organization makes it really difficult. When you have high turnover, everybody suffers. Employees, leaders, clients, vendors, and the organization's bottom line. At William C. Roy Consulting, we've lessened suffering in situations like this. In one organization, turnover was about 55%, and we were able to lower it to about 3% within 18 months. And that created a cost savings in the organization of about $800,000 a year in turnover costs that they were no longer paying. The key to our approach was really to focus on leader development, because when the leaders become strongly capable, self-aware, when they begin to do all the right things in the organization, everything starts to trickle down to everybody else in the organization. And it makes a culture that's really, really dynamic and where employees really love to be. Strong, self-aware executives know that they and their people need continual development. And that's where we come in. I'm an executive coach, professor, and consultant. I've been working with executives and senior leaders for almost 20 years to develop strategy, enhance employee engagement, and develop leaders at all levels. Today, as we go through this message on 3 ingredients for unlocking your potential, there's one thing that I want you to keep in mind. There is a well-tried and well-proven formula for unlocking your potential. So let's talk about how we might unlock your potential. First, there's 2 concepts that we need to look at and explain a little bit before we get into the 3 elements. The first is called adaptive challenges. Now, we have 2 types of challenges in our lives. The challenges we face are either technical or they're adaptive. Technical challenges are the ones that, while they're not necessarily easy, they often have straightforward, proven, and known solutions. The skill set needed to overcome the challenges are well known, such as removing an appendix. Not an easy job, but the knowledge is there. And if you're a surgeon and you don't know how to remove an appendix, it's not an extremely difficult thing to get you trained in how to do that. The solutions may not be easy, in other words, but they are well known. Adaptive challenges are a bit different. See, adaptive challenges are more common. We face them more often than technical challenge, and they require more than just developing a new skill. They require a mindset change. See, they require advancing to a more sophisticated level of mental development, a higher level of mental complexity. So keep that in mind. Now, the other concept we need to look at real briefly is this idea of an immunity to change. We're all familiar with the word immune or immunity. And immunity in the body is a protective system. It's really a genius design meant to protect us against danger. That danger usually comes in the form of an infection or a toxin. And immunity to change is also a defensive system that's designed to protect us from perceived harm. The system prevents us from making adaptive changes in our lives, and it's almost as if we have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. So an immunity to change can be a good thing, but most often it prevents us from making the changes that we want to make or need to make. It can be organizational or it can be individual. It manifests as hidden commitments, which have an underlying root cause that you have to take a look at and decide, is it worth changing because change is going to cost you something, or is the cost of changing too great and you just want to stay in the status quo where you are? So these hidden commitments work against our desire to grow or change. The process and the steps that we're looking at today are a proven method tested for over 35 years in the workplace for overcoming your immunity to change. You know, people often ask if the method we use is better for some people, not for others. Maybe it's well suited to women, but not to men so much. Or maybe there's certain ethnic groups that deal better with it, or different parts of the world where it works better. But the truth is, wherever this method has been tried, it has worked. And gender differences, age differences, ethnic differences, international differences, none of that has played a role in impeding people from succeeding in this system. But the truth is that there are some people that are better suited to this method than others. See, the body of evidence suggests that people need to be connected to 3 ingredients to succeed. They need gut, head and heart, and hands. And the more people connect to these 3 ingredients, the more successful this system is. So let's look at each of these items in turn. Ingredient 1 is the gut. So Professors Keegan and Leahy, who developed this method, say that to start and stay the course of doing genuinely developmental work, a person must really, really want to accomplish his or her goal. So it's not enough just to have a goal that makes sense or that has a logical reason for accomplishing it. Reasons can help fuel our motivation, there's no doubt, but they're not enough to help us cross the critical thresholds when things get a little difficult. Reason can highlight why we ought to do something or should accomplish our goals. But what we need to experience is a sufficient need or desire to accomplish those goals. So in other words, we have to have visceral feelings that come from the gut. And yes, feelings are important when we're trying to reach goals, because without feelings, we wouldn't be conscious human beings. Without feelings, we're not able to make our best decisions. You know, a lot of times people rate their goals as a 4 or a 5 on a 1 to 5 scale, but never follow through on pursuing them. It's almost as if they don't have the stomach to endure what they envision as the unpleasantness of changing. See, the need to change counterproductive counter commitments can be alarming, and some may choose to reassess the importance of their goals. Sometimes the gut feeling is that the cost of change is more powerful than the goal's importance. And in those cases, the goals aren't going to be met. Self-protection is sometimes a more important goal than the change that will provide the success that an individual desires. So goals need to be more than important. They need to be absolutely necessary before most people can achieve them. You need to feel that it's no longer tolerable to put up with not achieving the goal. Relenting cannot be an option. You must reach the limit of what you can bear, loaded down by the high price you're paying for not achieving your goal or maintaining the status quo. One of the most significant sources for this fire in the belly is that we feel that if we don't change, we are putting something or someone that we care about at risk. Often the goals that our clients develop are part of a professional goal, such as becoming a better listener. Our clients realize that their goals are affecting their personal lives, just not their professional lives, but their personal lives too, and interfering with their vital relationships at home. When we realize that we are failing those we love, the motivation to change increases 100-fold. So a gut level urgency to lessen distress, one's own distress or another person's distress, is one common driving force for individual change. Another driving force is something we call self-efficacy. It's the notion that we're capable of doing what we need to do in order to accomplish the desired change or the desired outcome. We may have a goal to stretch ourselves, pursue a passion, or to build our competencies. But if we don't feel in our gut that we can do anything about it, or aren't sure that we can do that, that we're not sure what we could do that would make much of a difference, we won't act on it. But the immunity to change process that we provide through this program can be enough to convince people that they have the tools to accomplish their goals. Readiness to change is often triggered by a sudden realization or an inspirational understanding of a truth about the individual, about ourselves. Though this coaching process, a door opens that maybe the individual didn't see before. This door reveals to them how they have been holding themselves back. Remember, 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake. Sometimes the initial reaction is to be upset. It's a natural reaction, and in our system, we have to make room for that. But many also feel promise in that there's an opportunity in finally understanding the source of their undermining behaviors. See, gut feelings can prepare us to take action, either because the cost of the status quo to ourselves or others has become intolerably high, or because we've experienced a burst of hope for seeing a way forward that was hidden from us before. A third motivation for change can be the personal experience of a deep discrepancy within ourselves. In these cases, people see the need to resolve a glaring gap that they see within themselves. The gap can be cognitive, it can be affective and or behavioral. It can be a mismatch that leads one person to feeling badly about themselves. It can also cause another to feel excited about the person that they aspire to be and now realize that they can become. It is for this reason that the goal identified by our clients, by any individual in this system, can be much deeper than they believe it to be. Or there can be another goal that comes to light that we end up working on. Sometimes the goal that's identified initially is not the goal that we end up working on. Or if it is, sometimes our clients realize that what they're working on for a professional goal actually impacts many more areas of their life. So whatever the case may be, for many people who see themselves behaving in a contradictory manner, with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, a visceral gut feeling is activated. As psychologist William Perry observed, organisms organize. Human organisms organize their reality. When people realize the self-discrepancies and sometimes self-deceptions in their own lives, it can be a powerful motivator for change. Our gut is the source of what moves us. It is that which gives us the motivation to change. It gives us the energy to take on adaptive challenges. But once people have taken the steps to commit to change, they still require the resources to sustain the journey. So gut is not enough. The next two ingredients provide these resources in the form of rewards in the change itself. That brings us to ingredient number 2, which is head and heart. In every adaptive challenge, the problem space lies both above and below our necks. Because these challenges express the feeling and thinking dimensions of a given level of mental complexity, we need to work on both dimensions to achieve our goals. So we have to work on both the head and the heart. We have to work on both what's going on here inside our minds and our brains, as well as what we're feeling. No amount of thinking or effort alone can solve the problems that we face. How we feel is inherent in the problem itself. So our feelings are tied to the problems we're having. And often the reason that we can't overcome some of our challenges is because the feelings are so tied to it that we don't know how to feel a different way about it to get past that and grow. How we feel is intricately tied to how we know. So we can't feel differently if we don't know differently. What we need is a bigger emotional and cognitive space, a space where we can experience that the internal conflicts and inconsistencies of our challenges are not inevitable or unchangeable. See, the mindset that we call the immunity to change is not merely a cognitive phenomenon. The mindset that resists change is actually an amazing anxiety management system. Tampering with this system means tampering with a well-tuned, highly serviceable, long-possessed instrument for keeping that dangerous dread or anxiety of change at bay. Our resistance or immunity to change is an intelligent force that works to protect us, even to save our lives as we know them. The head and heart work furiously in tandem to protect us from the anxiety that can come from change. When we work through this process, we take what is in effect an X-ray of our immunity to change. You inevitably look at two realities in one. First, you see the benefits of the way you have come to take care of yourself. So the status quo, the way you've always operated, the way you've come to operate or take care of yourself. But you also see the costs that you're paying for doing so in exactly the same way and not making some changes. Working through an adaptive change or an adaptive challenge is a head and heart consideration of an alternative cost-benefit equation, learning whether it's possible to think and to feel. That we can still be safe while pursuing a change that is the essential change of challenge we have to come to this place where we understand, in other words, that we can both think and feel in a different way and still be safe, still not have to go through intolerable levels of anxiety or stress. We realize that we can still be safe and even experience more expansive benefits doing things we never thought possible. We discover that we can not only survive, but we can thrive. The discovery is a recalculating of our risks and benefits that entails thinking about our feelings and feeling our way to new thinking. So to summarize this section, it's about learning how to think differently so that you can learn how to feel about things differently. And if you feel about things differently, it will drive your thinking to be different. So it's a shift in mindset that involves both the head and the heart, because they work together. Even if you're not a generally feeling type of person, your head and heart still work together to change your mindset so that you can make the changes, so that you can see the growth, so that you can accomplish more than you ever thought you could. As people experience the emergence of options where before they felt there were none, they begin to feel new energy and new hope. Tasting the possibility of living in a no less safe, but significantly larger, bigger space is intoxicating, and it's a source of continued motivation to stay in the work and carry it through. New ways of thinking permit new ways of feeling, and new ways of feeling encourage and validate new ways of thinking. Energy that had been trapped in the immune system is now released. The energy can now be redirected to feeling increasing competence and control in our lives. See, new energy leads to new action, a particular type of action that facilitates the process of change and adaptation, which brings us to the third ingredient of successful change. Ingredient number 3 is the hand. So we can't just think or feel our way out of an immune system, no matter how high our motivation is to accomplish our goal. Kant said, perception without conception is blind. Mindset creates what we see and how we see the world, but conception without inception is paralysis. So we must set out to do. We must get our hands engaged in the work. We must begin to take new action. Success comes from taking intentional, specific actions. The reaching hand must take actions that are inconsistent with our immunity or with our status quo so that we can test our mindset, because our beliefs, and many people call them limiting beliefs, but our beliefs may or may not be correct, but we'll never know until we test them. And this process starts very modestly. First, we have to start observing our own behaviors as if we were standing outside of ourselves. We have to become aware of what we do or don't do, how we act. What are we doing or not doing that works against our improvement goal? These observations lead us to see our hidden commitments and big assumptions in real time. See, this can, in turn, expand access to additional facets of our mindset. It can begin to illuminate to us other parts of our mindset that we may not have seen before, but may also be holding us back. The reaching hand must take actions that are inconsistent with our immunity. These observations can also lead us to see additional realms in which our big assumptions operate, and this can motivate us to change as we see greater costs than we first realized. So You may see the cost of not changing. Something or someone you care about may be being harmed by the way you're operating now, by the way you're acting now, by your mindset and how you see the world now. But as you work through this process, you begin to realize many times that the dangers, the risks are greater. The costs that we're paying are even higher than we thought. So first, we observe our own behaviors. Second, we need to enact new behaviors. These are the behaviors that our big assumptions would tell us not to do. They're the uncomfortable behaviors. We need to perform these new behaviors in order to get information about the validity of our mindset. We need to be as purposeful about which actions we will take as we are about the information we collect. Testing our mindset through intentional action, data collection, which means we test it and we see how people react. We see whether our assumption was right or not. And interpreting the data, they're the core means we use to mine the gap between our intentions and our current ability to deliver on them. The entire purpose in acting differently is to generate relevant data to test our big assumptions. The immediate purpose is not to improve or get better, not right away, although that's the end goal, but the immediate purpose in this exercise is to gain information. In getting information, we're operating in the sweet spot of an adaptive challenge. We are discovering whether it's possible to replace the safety born of limiting ourselves and our limiting beliefs with a safety informed by learning that the expected bad outcomes don't materialize when we suspend those self-imposed limits. We may also discover the benefits of an increased repertoire of behavioral options and the sense of excitement, accomplishment, and mastery that comes from making progress on achieving our challenging goals. One client described this as running a test of one's big assumptions. Keeping both mindset and behavior on the change agenda, it's not easy. There's two common tendencies to come, either to favor change on only one or the other dimension. And these tendencies highlight the difficulty of navigating through this process. Some find it difficult to keep clear on the purpose of enacting new behaviors. They tend to want to prove to themselves that they can do it, whatever their behavior challenge was. Others just want to get the work done, get it over with. Many people confuse short-term alteration or short-term behavioral change of specific behaviors with the actual accomplishment of their goal. This is a completely understandable level of, let's say, confusion. If you've ever wanted to lose 10 pounds, and who hasn't, and a diet helps you to do so, you might well assume that you've achieved your goal. You've lost the 10 pounds. But the goal isn't just to lose 10 pounds. The goal is to lose 10 pounds and keep it off. Dieting doesn't lead to weight loss that endures. To do this, we must join a change in behavior to a change in the way we think and feel. In order to change the way we think and feel, we need to change our mindset. When we're working on a truly adaptive goal, one that requires us to develop our mindsets, we must continually convert what we learn from behavioral changes into changes in the mindset. So as we learn and test our behaviors, and do those uncomfortable behaviors and learn that the risk we thought was there, the bad things that were going to happen or we thought were going to happen don't actually materialize, we must follow that through with a change in our mindset. Next, some people only seek insights to accomplish the work. They're struck by the self-understanding that the process affords. But then they get mired in their thinking. They, excuse me. They get mired in their thinking, they're analyzing, they're reflecting with very little inclination to act. But then they get so mired in their thinking that they may be operating in their personal, even tacit theory of change, which champions self-awareness of one's internal world, but the change itself doesn't happen. The presumption might be that understanding more and more deeply what motivates us is the means to change, or that untangling our thinking is the key. But reflection without action is ultimately as unproductive as action without reflection. As diametrically opposite as the two unproductive approaches are, overthinking or quickly doing the action without adjusting your thinking, they share an identically flawed theory of action. If I can just accomplish one more behavior, one more insight, it will finally unlock the key to why I cannot change. That is what people think. So it takes a combination of both thinking things through well, doing the observation, and taking the action to adjust your mindset. Now, as we're coming to the end of this, I would be remiss in this presentation if I didn't discuss the social milieu that plays an important role in adaptive change. Yes, the relationship with the coach that you get through this process is important, but your relationship with your coach, whether it's a relationship coach or an executive coach or a leadership coach or a life coach, that relationship is never the most important social relationship. More important are the contributions of people who are a seamless part of each one of your change narratives. Team members, your spouse, significant other, best friend, colleagues who care about you. Without such a social environment, it's exceedingly difficult to see ourselves fully and accurately. We need people who care about us and will give us honest feedback. Without such a social environment, we'll never see ourselves fully. We're limited by our own perspectives. Unless we have a social environment of trust and individuals with whom we can share our journey, we become blinded by our own bias about ourselves and our own limited perspectives. It's so much easier to stay in the zone and make progress when there's a social dimension to our learning. We let someone who we are working on, who we know, we let someone we know and trust, we let them know that what we're working on becoming. For example, a better listener. Maybe we ask them to be a respondent to a survey we sent out, which is part of our system. Once they know our intent, we can turn to them at any point in the process and ask for honest feedback. They might even be so bold as to let us know what we did or did not do concerning our intent to be better listeners. So they may offer you feedback without you asking for it. We all need those kinds of relationships in our lives. Sometimes just seeing someone else walk down the hall or hear another person's voice or talk to someone on a Zoom call these days reminds us of what we're working on. These cues can quickly and effectively get us back on track, get us back in the zone. Additionally, simply knowing that others know what we're working on can provide a form of social accountability. So in this way, we count on others to help hold us to our own goals. Now, what I've described so far are the key features of working adaptively, working from the gut, linking the head to the heart, taking specific, deliberate kind of action, which is the hand. And when we have all these pieces in place, these three ingredients, the gut, the head and heart, and the hand, people change. You might be asking what's common across all people who we've helped and who have taken on these adaptive challenges and met their goals. They all succeed at changing both their mindset, which is the meaning-making system that shapes thoughts and feelings, and their behavior, rather than changing only mindset or only behavior and hoping the other will eventually follow. They change both simultaneously. They all become keen and focused observers of their own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and they learn to use this information. They see the agenda that is driving them, not just the agenda that they are driving. And we all have an agenda that drives us, which is another way of saying that we have competing commitments. Changes to their mindsets are always in the direction of seeing and feeling more possibilities. Spaces people thought they could not or should not enter because they were out of reach or too dangerous are now fully accessible. They take focused risks and build a new set of muscles and metrics around assumptions based on actual rather than imagined data about consequences of their own new actions. Their anxiety around the individual adaptive challenge is reduced, if not eliminated entirely, while their experiences of pleasure significantly increase. They experience increased mastery, more options, wider control, and greater degrees of freedom. They make progress on or even accomplish their adaptive goals, and more often than not, their accomplishments extend considerably beyond the initial aspirations. Because they have developed new mental capabilities, not just a solution to a single problem, they can bring these capabilities to other challenges and other venues and other areas of their life, both in their work and in their personal lives. And their life becomes improved overall, not just in the workplace. So are you ready to start unlocking your potential in yourself, your colleagues, your work group, or your organization? Are you interested in seeing what happens for you or others when once countervailing energies are made available for other purposes? If so, what are your own best next steps? See, we spend so much energy trying to appear to be the perfect person, the person who doesn't make mistakes, especially in the workplace. What if we could take all that energy we're investing on looking competent, even though we don't feel competent, and channeling it towards real mastery and real competence and real achievement? If you're ready, what are your own best next steps? My recommendation would be that you have a first-hand experience of your own immunity to change. What would your own immunity X-ray look like? What does an improvement goal of your own become when you convert it to what I would call a good problem? What would it really mean for you to personally work on your own good problem by letting it first solve you? If any of these questions are of interest to you, I invite you to contact me today. There's several ways we can get in touch. My email, you can contact me through my website, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn. So I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I will answer your questions personally. And that's our webinar. I want to thank you for being here and have a great evening.